My body didn't know the difference between actually eating it and having it in, filling my subconscious mind with the idea that I was getting all this fresh nutrition, fresh carrots, broccoli, spinach. I'm having smoothies, all in my mind. I never got sick at all in 240 days. I never suffered with an injury, and I didn't suffer with fatigue. I never suffered with DOMS, that delayed onset muscle soreness that we get when we train hard. And I was rowing for between 10 and 12 hours a day.
Welcome to the podcast that guides men to demystify and develop their intuition. I'm your host, Doug Bites. Let's dig into the science and expand your horizons.
I'm going to welcome you on board the Australian Made. She is a 7.7 metre by 2 metre wide, specifically designed ocean rowing boat. And she has everything on board to sustain my life. She has all the bells and whistles the big boys have got in terms of, my electronics, my AIS, my GPS. I've got a chart plotter, autopilot, electric water maker. There's the batteries, solar panels, you name it. She has everything to sustain me. And does anybody know what ocean rowing looks like? Has anyone seen ocean rowing before? No. Okay, awesome. So here we go. Welcome on board Australian Made. We're going to go across the Atlantic Ocean. This was a 68-day journey. It's going to take you about 2 minutes.
You just want someone to give you a hug. This is Michelle in the Atlantic, somewhere on the 20 degrees latitude. Wow. I got to tell you, I don't love going overboard. I'd be braver if there was myself and one other here. But anyway, as Martin Rooney says, you have to go into the raw. It's facing your fears. It's just doing it. Damn, I can see more pippies. So I had to just take the chance and do it. Go, don't even think about it. Get under the boat. I didn't even look down to see what was under me or around. I just looked at the hull and scraped and scraped. As I said, my office today is wild. Words just can't even describe it. My words, vocabulary, inadequate to describe what I'm seeing right now. This little fellow landed on my boat. Hoo-hoo, this is pretty exciting, right? I better start rowing. The Three Sturges! Thank you, Northcap! Mamma mia! I'm a lucky girl. I've just opened up my hatch door and found this little bird. Look, and I feel like he's just coming to say hi, and he's just there. My lip is so bad, I've got to cover it up, and it's not where I know how. 6 days to go, maybe 7. It's not looking so swell for me. I just want to get home now. I really do.
That was day 2. Not really.
Wow.
Just jokes. So that's what ocean rowing looks like. And remember, I was in a stage of my life where I was just going to say yes to every opportunity. And I do issue a warning now, and that is be careful what you read, because it is this very book here, Rowing the Atlantic, that was handed to me so randomly that, this is the book really that inspired me to go and row an ocean. I didn't know people rowed oceans before I read this book. And in fact, I didn't read the book properly. I would just flick through and look at the pictures, and then I would randomly open it up to page 30. Then I'd read the last page. Then I'd read the first page. So I didn't really even read the book properly. All as I know is that I thought, I want what this girl has got. I want to achieve what she's achieved. She pushed every single boundary. I related to her because she was not a rower. She was not elite. She was no one special. She was just somebody in the corporate world who also, after writing her own eulogy and reading it, and she thought, how boring am I? she went and did this. So, you know, there were so many things that resonated with her story. And she basically gave me permission because she wasn't the elite athlete. You know, she wasn't someone that was, you know, society put on that pedestal because of, you know, you're born with all of these natural attributes and what. Be careful, boys, what you read. And so the Atlantic Ocean was to depart from La Gomera in Spain to Antigua, the Caribbean. And it was a journey that obviously at the start, you have no idea how long it's going to take you. And it took me 68 days. It was my biggest marketing nightmare. You know, here I am trying to raise $200,000 to do this. So these boats are not cheap. These adventures are not cheap. And this was my most humbling moment when I was trying to sell it to, you know, corporates and inviting them to come on board, give me a fistful of money. And when one of them said to me one day, well, who are you and what have you done? I was like, oh my God, good point. I've done nothing worthy of getting a fistful of money from you. I've got nothing to back myself to show you that I, you know, I finished what I start, or, you know. So here I am saying to everyone, you know, I'm going to face salt sores, blisters, capsizing, system failures. You know, do you want to come with me? So thank you to someone who did say, well, what have you got for me? And I thought, okay, I need to step up. So I need to go and do something to prove myself to be worthy of, you know, asking for this money. So world record for the 1,000,000 meter on a Concept 2. Has anyone rowed on a Concept 2 indoor rowing machine? Put your hand. No. I'll just tell you, it's extremely boring, and it's probably the least liked piece of equipment in any gym. It's the piece of equipment where people relate it to or associate to, oh my God, I hate the rower. So as a personal trainer, people hate the rower. And when you put them on it, it's almost like, you know, this will sort the men out from the boys, the rower does. So I committed to doing the world record, and which required a 6-month. I had to follow a 6-month program because I was not a rower. So I was learning to row, but it was ticking all the boxes. You know, my body had to go through all of the physiological adaptations to be a long distance stamina endurance style body. I was learning to row. I was learning about, you know, the importance of nutrition, maintaining a certain calorie input whilst you are rowing. And it was an event that actually took 5.5 days. I rowed 14 hours a day, and I had to maintain a particular pace. We were chasing numbers. But I just want to stress the power in writing, first of all, verbalizing something, and then secondly, actually writing it down. So I told my gym that this is what I'm going to do. This was my goal for the 12 months. And, you know, this felt really arrogant to actually do this, to actually write, to be the fastest woman in the world to row 1,000,000 meters on a Concept 2. You know, I had that little birdie on, and the imposter syndrome, that whole thing sort of saying, who the hell do you think you are? Like, so you're constantly fighting, or I was constantly fighting all those little things. But what I didn't realize was the power of doing this, and also committing to the journey of, you know, the 6-month training program, and how confident building that was. So that even, you know, now when I did go and approach sponsors, I now felt like I deserved to ask for the money. So we did achieve the world record in 5 days, 21 hours, 35 minutes. And I took that record off a German Olympic rower. So we smashed it by almost 11 hours. I say we, because I had a whole team of people who helped me do this, my little support crew, my friends. They all, you know, supported me throughout the whole 6 months. And then, of course, at the event. So yeah, thanks to my support crew, we together achieved it. But, you know, this whole committing fully is, you know, part of my winning and my success, my backbone. It was head and heart coherence. So, you know, I wasn't 1 foot in, 1 foot out. It was just all or nothing. I was going to do this, do or die. And I also put a little caveat on it. And I said to myself, if I can't achieve this world record, I will not allow myself to go and row across the Atlantic Ocean. So, here I am in the comfort of everything, with air conditioner blowing on me. I've got support. And I just thought to myself, if I can't do it here and now, then there's no way I'll be able to achieve it out there. So a little bit of added pressure. And also today, I just want to talk about the three main things that I think have been the backbone to my success. And one of them is creating filters. So, when you're faced with all of the negative Nancy's, the naysayers, which, sometimes when you say you're going to do something, you will be faced with what I've worked out. It's other people's fears being projected onto you, which that can paralyze you. So I've learned in the past, and thanks to all of these things that I've done more recently, is that by creating filters, you take on board what they're saying. But I used to put myself in like a bubble, and I'd put a shield up, and I would just imagine all their words just ricocheting off, because while I was on display at the boat show, as my boat was being built, and it took 2 years. That preparation was 2 whole years to get to the Atlantic, through my training, trying to get and attract those sponsors to get that 200,000. So during the time when I was on display, a lot of the yachties and whatnot, Sydney Boat Show, it gets about 120,000 people through the doors over a 4-day weekend. And so many of them said to me, how can a man can't even do this? So how can you? I got that comment quite often, or they'd look me up and down, and then they'd just walk away and laugh. I would have sailors come up and say, you know what, this boat will last. It'll last the distance, but up here, this will fail you. So, I took all of their input sort of on board, and I thought, and then I also copped, it's people like you who is going to make our rescuers at risk, because they're going to have to come and save you. So that's when I thought, okay, well, I really need to step up. What can I do to be, the safest version of myself out there while I go and do something like this? So, doing all of the courses, the essential seamanship navigation, learning to stitch myself up in the event that I gash my leg, getting your VHF radio license. So I was ticking all the boxes, thanks to all these comments and everything, the negative comments that I was receiving. I thought, how can I turn some of these into a little bit of a positive? So yeah, creating the filters, building a team of mentors that I could rely on. So for me, it was the Dr. Joe Dispenzas, the Greg Bradens, the Bruce Lipton, Jose Silva, building a mental toolkit to get me through things like anxiety, overwhelm, fear. There was a lot of times where you're out there and you're doing things for the first time. And no matter how prepared you try to be prior to the departure, you're still going to be in a world of firsts. There's so many scenarios that you can't even mimic or mock prior to departure. Like deploying all of my sea anchors and my storm strategies, the drogues. I could never deploy them rowing around Sydney Harbour in the conditions that I was going to be facing out there. So I knew when I get out there, and losing sight of shore, I had never lost sight of shore prior to my departure either. So for me, it was important to create the filters, create this little team that I would then put in my head. These are the voices that I listened to while I was doing all of my prep. And then, of course, when you're out there, you don't have access to Wi-Fi. So the only material I had access to on my listening device was what I downloaded prior to departure. So I had all of these authors, all of these guys, and they, talk about neuroplasticity, the power of the mind, how the body can heal itself. I had to actually not only believe that, but I tried and tested it in the lead up to these rows, and I implemented it into my everyday life. so that by the time I got out there and I'm stripped bare completely from everything that is first world, all of the conveniences, the safety that we have, and that we actually take it for granted sometimes, I think, or at least doing adventure has taught me how much I used to take for granted. So by creating my little team, I knew that no matter what, I could face the storm. You know, I had my homeopathic medical kit. Yes, I had the Western medicine medical kit with, you know, everything in there, pain relief you could imagine, you know, levels of pain relief. There was, you know, the staple gun in case I gashed my arm. If it was a centimeter long, I could use the staple gun. If it was bigger than a centimeter wide, then I was down to, you know, needle and thread. So all of this was part of the prep. And the big thing about it was being able to trust it, which obviously takes time and trial and error in the lead up to. So it's also the dedication and the discipline. It requires dedication and discipline. But, you know, meditation was a huge part of my success mentally. And being able to get myself in that meditative state and calm my mind in the middle of like hurricanes and cyclones. And, you know, coming across the Pacific, we had 5 hurricanes, we had 4 cyclones. And if it wasn't for all of that prep that I did with meditation, with breathing techniques, I'm not quite sure how I would have made it, to be honest. You know what I mean? And to think that in that 240-day crossing, coming across the Pacific from Mexico to Port Douglas in Australia, I only used 6 Nurofen. That's for pain relief. That is all I used. And everything else was done by the power of the mind. So every day I was serving myself fresh vegetables, fresh fruit. And, you know, in reality, I was living on dehydrated meals. Everything was processed. It was highly packaged. And here I am every day serving myself fresh carrots, broccoli, spinach. I'm having smoothies, all in my mind. My body didn't know the difference between actually eating it and having it in, you know, filling my subconscious mind with the idea that I was getting all this fresh nutrition. I never got sick at all in 240 days. I never suffered with an injury, and I didn't suffer with fatigue. I never suffered with DOMS, you know, that delayed onset muscle soreness that we get when we train hard. And I was rowing for between 10 and 12 hours a day. The only time I didn't row was when I was locked in my cabin because I was waiting out a cyclone. So, and we had 3 events where I was literally locked in the cabin for, my biggest one was 9 days. And again, that all came down to a mindset for me. It was like, okay, rather than say my life sucks right now, I was like, thank you, universe. You've just given me reason to rest, to lay about guilt-free, lay around, sleep, eat, hydrate. And, you know, so it was forced rest and recovery, because ordinarily I would never take a day off rowing. It was, you know, that was my routine. It was eat, sleep, row, repeat. I was there to do a job, and that was get this boat across the Pacific as quickly as you possibly can, because there comes a point when you're out there that you actually realize how vulnerable you actually are. So, you know, getting to the finish line, you just want to do it as quick as you can, man. You know, that was my philosophy, and my strategy was to, let's just get the hell out of here. So there's my mentors, Dr. Joe. If you're interested in any of his works, the best place to start is either Breaking the Habit of Yourself or You Are the Placebo, and the Silva Mind Control Method. That was a 4-day program that I did, and they were my 2 main go-tos in order to, you know, when I was in a state of overwhelm, or I could feel a bit of anxiety coming on, you know, the calm before the storm, when I was waiting for the cyclone to hit. That's when I actually felt really quite anxious because I didn't know what to expect. You know, I would ask my weather router, just paint me a picture. How big are the waves going to be? How many seconds between each one will I have? And then I could, you know, paint this picture, visualize it, and I would be like, okay, yeah, that's all right. I can handle that. And, you know, I knew I'd be locked in the cabin. I'm in a watertight, safe space. If my boat capsizes, if it does a 360, she pops back up. I had tried and tested the boat prior to departure as well. So that's another big thing to the success, or, increasing my confidence in my vessel. I knew my vessel extremely well. I built the vessel, so I know every single nook and cranny. I know every single bulkhead, what's below that deck. I know where every single void space is. And that also really helped my confidence in my boat, knowing that if she did turn upside down, she was definitely going to come back. I've tested that several times in controlled situations. But so another aspect was to completely immerse myself in this project, which is why I got involved in the boat build. It's why I turned up every week in a pair of overalls, and I'm sure I was a massive pain to the boat builder, because I'd turn up and I'd be like, all right, what am I going to do today? Give me something to do. It gave me an opportunity to learn how to use tools. I'm a massage therapist. I don't do that sort of stuff. I got familiar with, using epoxy and resin. I knew how strong my boat was. The boat builder got a piece of the carbon fiber. So what separated me and the ocean was 5 mil of foam core carbon fiber sheets. And he held it up and he's like showing me, hitting it with all different objects, showing me just how strong it is. He said, your panels, Michelle. He said, this thing is built like a tank. So then when I'm out in a storm, I'm hearing his voice, and I'm remembering what we did to try and break a panel. So you can imagine what that does to your mindset when you're out there. It's like, yeah, this boat, man, she's going to last. I love my boat. I know how strong she is. And what I realized was to get less impressed and more involved.
Just saying, peeps, I rode out of Mexico on a full moon, and look what I'm finishing on. You've got to be joking. There is no coincidences. That is divine intervention. And look at that beautiful sunset and the ranges. I'm just loving being home. Oh my God, I can't wait to see all my people, my friends and my family who are waiting for me. And just look at Australia. How lucky are we people? It's like I have a whole newfound sense of love, appreciation and gratitude for how great our country is. And look what Mother Nature's giving me. She's bringing me home on an amazing sea state with incoming favourable current and a little bit of a breeze behind me. I mean, it couldn't be more perfect than this. It really could not. Look at that. Check out our country. Man, you got to get out. You got to get on it. You got to get in it. You got to get less impressed and more involved. Yeah. Wow.
So whenever you embark on a project, that is what I now try to encourage, is for you to really immerse yourself in the project and become emotionally connected to it, so that when you're out there and you're having hard times, you're being challenged, things aren't quite going your way. For me, it was remembering how hard I had worked to get to the start line, all of the sacrifices that it took. When my friends were going out every weekend and, my girlfriends were buying $300 pairs of shoes, I'm buying $3,000 worth of rope and getting very excited about my little stainless steel box and my ropes. So yeah, by getting so emotionally connected to my project, on those days when I was really struggling, I was like, oh my God, I have worked so hard to get here that quitting is not an option. And like I said, there's that 5 mil piece of foam core. That's what was separating me and the 6,000 or 7,000 meters worth of water. 7 kilometers deep is the Atlantic Ocean. The Pacific Ocean in most of the areas where I was rowing. And getting used to all of the epoxies, the resins, drilling holes in my boat, so that I knew in the event that something broke and I had to makeshift something out of something, And I talk so vaguely because, you know, the scenarios of what can go wrong out there are so huge that I knew that I could chop my boat up in certain areas and I could, you know, make myself a spare panel. I had the cloth and I had epoxy, and I knew I could rebuild a rudder if I had to. I didn't have a spare rudder. And while redundancies are super important whenever you do any ocean crossing, you know, I always say captains and skippers of boats are king of redundancies. You can't have a redundancy or a spare part for everything on board. And that was something I had to come to terms with. So just looking around my boat thinking, okay, if that broke, I could stick that together. I could put this here. I could, you know, reinforce that with a piece of panel from there. And again, that was all part of the confidence building process. And when I actually got to the start line of the Atlantic, which was in fact a race, so there were other, you know, there was 28 boats in the Atlantic race. And I started speaking to all of the other competitors, and none of them knew their boat. And I'm like, what batteries have you got? How many watts of solar panel have you got? You know, no one knew what was beneath their deck. And I was like, holy crap, man. I was feeling like, before I got there, I was feeling so naive and so green and, you know, a little bit unworthy of being there. But after listening to the lack of prep that everybody else turned up with, all of a sudden my confidence was boosted. I'm like, man, I know my boat. Like, I was like, have you been in your boat when they tipped you upside down? So many people had never experienced it. So I had been in my boat several times when we did a capsize test so that I knew what it would feel like. And also, you know, again, increasing my confidence. Here I am in this watertight cabin, inside, upside down, making sure there's no leaks anywhere. And if there was, I would see them and we could fix them. Everyone else was going out there on a, I hope it self-rights. So I don't think that's good enough. Another valuable lesson was don't be afraid to do things differently. This was my hands at the end of the 68-day Atlantic crossing. And when I decided I was going to row across the Pacific, I knew that I had to do things differently. I could not end with my hands looking like that. So it was just by making a list of, you know, strengths and weaknesses, what went well, what could be done better, lessons learned, all that sort of stuff. I put that all into a list. And my mental prep, I invested a hell of a lot of time for the Pacific row into the mental preparation. And because, you know, by this stage, I've already got the boat built, which took up a lot of my time, effort, money, everything in the first row. So by the time I decided to go across the Pacific, the Atlantic had already highlighted my mental weaknesses. So that's how I knew I need to invest a lot of time here. So thanks to the Silva Mind Control Method, that's what I used to get me across the Pacific. But, you know, it's pretty much the conditions of my hands that screamed, you need to do things very differently, Michelle. You can't finish the Pacific in this state, not physically, not mentally. You know, I had to put on weight for the Pacific row. I lost 14 kilos on the Atlantic. So again, it was just highlighting all of these weaknesses and things that you can do better. And the idea is to try to maintain as much as your weight as possible, because when you're losing all that weight out there, it's usually muscle. And when you lose muscle, you're getting weaker every single day. So, you know, I had a very different nutrition plan. I had a different training plan. We finished the Pacific with my hands looking like this. So this is the result of just doing things differently. And they never once looked anything like they did on the Atlantic. So during my whole 240 days across the Pacific Ocean, I never suffered with the same pain and dysfunction that all of those massive holes in my hands, thanks to the calluses. So all as I knew is I need to trim the calluses down. You need to keep them at a nice functional level. Yes, you need some rough skin on those main points, but it needs to be filed and trimmed regularly, because once they're really big, that's when they're prone to tearing, and then open wounds out on the ocean never heal well. Being able to accept and surrender to I'm not in control of everything. So I take a lot of these lessons, they are universally translatable and transferable into first world. I call first world, this world we live in, I call this the matrix. And every time I step out of it and come back, it's more and more like a matrix to me. But being able to accept and surrender, these have been invaluable lessons in terms of energy. How much time and energy do we waste on the things that we can't control? And Mother Nature out there, she taught me that there are days when it's not even worth rowing. I had to accept that there would be days when I would go backwards. On my best day, I did 61 nautical miles in a 24-hour period. On my worst day, I did -6. So again, that just highlights, how much Mother Nature is in control. So as soon as I accepted that and surrendered, I already felt at peace. And, at the start line, at the Pacific start line, leaving Mexico, I said, I'll see you when this is done. And that's it. I had no expectation of time, how many days. I just knew that this is my home now. This is my place until it is done, whatever that takes. So, knowing when to stow and store, knowing when to walk away, knowing when to run. These were also part of accept and surrender. And thanks to my amazing weather router, who actually became the most important piece of my puzzle during the row. So if I was only allowed to make one call a day on my sat phone, it would have been to my weather router. And I told him that. I said, Rog, if I was only allowed to make one call a day, it would be to you. And he's like, oh my God, the pressure. So poor Rog, he became, like I said, the most important phone call that I made. I relied on him so much. He became like a mentor to me. He also would calm me down, and he became my reason and logic go-to. So when things were getting tough, Rog was able to put everything into perspective for me. He'd go through a little checklist. Okay, Michelle, is your boat broken? No. Are you broken? No. And he'd go through, like, your water maker's working? Yes. Your autopilot? Yes. And he just was able to, with this very logical checklist, put me at calm and ease. So these are the lessons that you learn, or that adventure has taught me, that I can now put into my everyday life, and that I now try to just share with others, so that, life's about having strategy. It's about having a technique when everything falls to shit. So thanks to Rog, sometimes he'd send me a thing, don't even bother rowing today, because you're just going to be belting your head against a brick wall. You're going to be wasting energy. You might even break an oar. These are the risks when you go and row in silly conditions out there. And remember, yes, I've got redundancy, but I had 6 oars. So of course, as you break them, which I never have, however, it happens often. It's a very common thing for rowers to chew through their oars. Somehow, I don't know how. I'm still on my very first pair. My first pair did all my training on, got me across the Atlantic. I came home, I trained on them again for the Pacific. I rowed across the Pacific, and I'm still rowing on that same pair of oars. Go figure. So the Pacific Ocean was inspired, pretty much I started planting the seed when I was out there on the Atlantic. And I actually said on day 43 of the Atlantic, imagine if you rowed across the Pacific Ocean. And then I say, no, that's a big one, that one. And I said to myself out loud on GoPro, why don't you just finish the one that you're on at the moment? So the power of the word, of the spoken word, that's my point right there. So I planted the seed. Of course, it plagued me consistently, and I think of all the things that I didn't get right on the Atlantic Ocean, and how much better and how much more fun I would have if I did this, if I tweaked and refined my boat, if I simplified this system, if I had extra power, if I had, spare water maker, how could I make my life easier? What if I had a fantastic mental toolkit? That was a big thing that the Atlantic highlighted for me, was my mental unpreparedness, I would call it. So preparing for the Pacific, obviously it's 2.5 times the length of the Atlantic. I was going to be on board the same boat. So my big challenge was space, provisioning for 360 days versus 90 days. How am I going to fit all this on the same space? So, I had to, like I said, just be prepared to do things differently. Packaged food, it now had to be 10 meals in one packet. I couldn't afford all of the space that 1,440 individual meals would have taken up. So if I took 1,440 individually packed dehydrated meals, my boat would not have been able to accommodate the space of all the packaging. So I had to contact my supplier, my food supplier, and say, listen, you need to purposefully repackage all my food. It must have at least 10 meals in each bag. It must be vac sealed really tight. Get it down to the smallest size you possibly can. He says, yeah, no problem, Michelle, can do that. And then I sent him a cutout of the hatch where, I'm storing everything in hatches. And I said, oh, and by the way, it must be able to fit through here. And he goes, I don't have bags for that. But he was a can-do. I seem to just attract all these people that just was like, yep, don't worry, I'll make it work. I'll work it out. So thanks to him, he packaged all my food to fit through my little tiny hatches. I had to reconfigure my cabin. How could I best stow and store stuff? How could I just keep some sort of law and order in here so that, you got to think worst case scenario. When I capsize, you can imagine shit goes everywhere. So I just put all these little elastic baskets on the side of the hull. We created some extra storage space in some of the void that I had. And importantly, I took the teddy bear, and that was as a recommendation from a sports psychologist, because we realized what I suffered with mostly on the Atlantic was lack of oxytocin. Being a massage therapist, I touch people. Every time I do that, I am getting a dose of oxytocin. It's a feel-good factor for me. And that's probably why I chose it as an occupation without really understanding all that way back then. But out here in the middle of the ocean, I'm not getting oxytocin. This is the love drug. This is the drug we get when we pat a pet, when we kiss, when we hug, when you do something of service. So even making a cup of tea for you, I'm getting a dose of oxytocin because I'm doing something nice for you. So the psychologist said, just take a little cuddly pet, cuddly toy. And he said, that's what kids do. They take their blankie, they've got a security blanket, they've got a toy, they've got something like that. He said, every time they do that, they're just getting a hit of oxytocin. I'm like, oh my God, you can biohack all of your feel-good hormones as you can all of your stress hormones. The thoughts, everything that we think, the stuff that we say, we are creating a physiological, biological, hormonal effect on our body. So again, I get very excited about stuff like this because we are the creator of our diseases. And I say that as someone who has suffered for most of my life with extreme severe dermatitis, eczema. I was on every single cortisone, orally, topically. I was on every antihistamine. I'd wake up, the first thing I did is pop this goddamn antihistamine. I did that for 28 years of my life. And then I stumbled across a new way, we've got to do things differently. And I got introduced to a naturopath, a homeopath, completely changed my life. My whole paradigm had to change, this belief system. Oh, I can't even look at grass, I'll get itchy. I used to say shit like that. And I would start itching at that. So, I've got a friend that would say to me, oh my God, I'm sick to death of hearing about it, Michelle. This was during COVID, she just got sick to death of hearing everything. Well, guess what? She developed an earache. And I've said to her, my God, listen to your words. I'm sick of hearing it. So now the more I see these things and I listen to what people say and I look at their body and I look at their ailments, and then I can see how we manifest everything that we enjoy or suffer in our body. And I try to even just open your mind to consider this. And then, some people are quite offended by it. I have a friend who had breast cancer, and she said, so you're telling me I created my breast cancer? I said, yes, I am. Absolutely. I said, I just want you to think about how hostile your home is. Think about how toxic it is. Think about the yelling, the fighting. It is not a peace, harmonious sanctuary for you to go to. There's door slamming, there's, yelling at each other, there's F you, there's this, there's that, And I said, now imagine being a cell living in that. Is that an environment that you think you would thrive in? And she's like, oh my God. It actually took a while for her to be able to say, I can see what you're saying now. So people do take a little bit of offense to it. But I think as soon as you can accept and surrender and accept the responsibility to let go of that whole victim card, it's life-changing at a cellular level. And there's a lot of studies to prove that. Get involved with Dr. Joe Dispenza's work. Read You Are the Placebo. Mind-blowing, life-changing. And there she is, my little cacahuate. The Mexicans named her cacahuate. It's peanut. They said, you're like a little peanut on the sea. I'm like, oh my God, I guess I am when you look at that. So this here for me, this is a big boat to row, but a very small boat in a very big ocean. So there's a little bit of that contradicting kind of thing going on in my brain when I look at my boat and I look at the ocean. But this was taken in Darling Harbour in Sydney. I did a lot of my training around Sydney Harbour, and I got lots of invites. My boat just seemed to attract lots of invites to special stuff, special events. So I took full advantage of it. I just said, remember, I was in this thing of just say yes. Just say yes. So again, that's changed my life. Doing things you love. Loving what you do. This is all, part of my motto, my mantra. Don't die wondering. Start thinking you can and you will. These were my mantras. They have become my motto. It's how I live my life now. And I know for a fact when you commit fully, 100%, brain and heart coherence. So, the head and the heart must be in alignment without conflict. This is when I know the universe opens doors. This is when people come. I can write a book about the experiences that I've had at the nth hour when I've needed something so random but so specific, and it's just arrived. And you hear people say, oh, what a coincidence. Oh, I know nothing is a coincidence, and it's all based on the vibration, on the frequency that you are on. Adventure has made me really look outside of the 3D world that we live in. Everything that we see, we touch, we taste, we smell, we experience. Adventure has made me go into new dimensions. And, I don't know if that sounds woo-woo to you. I don't know where everyone's at, but what I've learned is the whole brain and heart coherence, the importance of no conflict and of having faith in action. What I've done is it's pure faith. It's having the desire, the belief, and the expectancy. And this is how I approach things now. I will ask the universe. Here I am telling my extremely straighty 180 practical weather router about my dragons and my guides. And, I've got all these people looking after me and I can feel their energy. One day he says to me, Michelle, here I am telling him about crystals and rainbows and, my healing crystals that I would sleep with, my mookaite, and my tiger's eye. They're two crystals that I don't do anything without. So, you develop little rules and rituals, and they're very grounding. But I was telling Roger about my dragons, my guides, my spirits, and he said, Michelle, are you smoking anything? I said, no, Roger. He said, have you got alcohol on that boat? I said, no, Roger. And he said, maybe you've just been alone too long. So here I am, trying to convert him to this new realm, this, fifth dimension, whatever you want to call it. But I've experienced it so many times now that I just know it to be true. And I just know that what I need, it will come. I trust fully. So, just a little look at my preparation. So preparation is everything. Never, ever skint on prep. And, I do talks at schools, and this is one of the things that I tell the kids, that you need to completely immerse yourself in the project, get completely emotionally connected to it, and then don't ever skip a day. When I was training for the 1,000,000 meter, it was a 6-month program. It was a 7-day per week program, and it required me to train twice a day. There was no day off. It was designed so that you never had adequate recovery. That's how the program was designed. It was written by the Australian Queensland Institute of Sport. At the bottom of the program, I'm just an average nobody, not elite, not an athlete, all this sort of stuff. At the bottom of that program, it said, Olympians have tried this program but failed to be able to maintain it for 2 weeks. So you can imagine when I read that, I'm like, oh my God, who do I think I am? But I think the biggest part of my success there was I never skipped a day. So there I was on Christmas Day, which was, I had to row for 8 hours every single Sunday. My Sunday rowing shift was 8 hours. And that particular year, Christmas Day fell on Sunday. Well, that's my 8-hour day. So I was in the camping ground, under a tree. Australian Christmases are very, very hot. I had my rowing machine and I did my 8-hour row on Christmas Day because I was so convinced if I fail this, it's because I didn't stick to the program. So now this is what I try to say to the kids is when you stick to the program, when you do the work, you can't not, you know what I mean? And the valuable lessons that, doing that program taught me that set me up so perfectly for the Atlantic row. All the lessons that I learned during that, they stick with me today. They're with me every day in First World. So creating filters, these are my highlights for you today, gents. It's about creating filters, immersing yourself fully and letting go of control. So just accept and surrender. Don't waste your energy on the things that you know that you cannot change. I use the weather as an example because, out there, Mother Nature, I knew I could never change her. So I just knew, okay, fine. There'll be days when I do go backwards. I will do circles. But that's okay because everything's in swings and roundabouts. Everything comes around eventually. And it also taught me to trust my intuition as well. So, adventure puts you on the edge. It's, strips you bare of everything. So I had nothing else to rely on except my intuition. And the Silva method, it's based on meditation and intuition. That's the whole program. So it's meditation in every single state, the dynamic state, the resting state. I was able to go into the meditative state during 8 hours of rowing. So can you imagine being out there uninterrupted, no first world demands, no inbox, no alerts, no social media, nothing except extremely high quality, very carefully, consciously chosen material to listen to. And then I could close my eyes and just provide the propulsion and put my autopilot on. So I didn't have to worry about watching the compass for direction. I could just completely go into this meditative state whilst rowing. And it's very, very healing. You do a lot of healing in that alpha state. So taking my brainwave states through its 4 states, that was also something that I learned and I used to my advantage, and I believe is also why I didn't suffer with sickness, why I didn't suffer with soreness, why I didn't suffer with the fatigue that I did coming across the Atlantic. Now, I'm happy to take questions. If any, I'm going to do stop screen share. And if anybody has any questions, please don't be shy.
Who's got something?
My voice is kind of croaky, you guys can hear. So and I've talked to Michelle for several hours about this. So
Michelle, what would you say was like the driving inspiration? You read that book and then you thought it was possible, but what was like, what was it that allowed you to fully commit to that mission?
Was the desire for change in my life. So seriously, I looked at my life and I thought, how predictable it was, how safe it was. I knew how much money I was going to earn, the conversations I was going to have on the table, all this sort of stuff. I thought, and I was only 38, and I thought to myself, is this as good as it gets? And if it is, I'm seriously ready to check out now. So I was like, oh, check out. Shit, what does that mean? Then I went through the process of checking out and the effect that it would have on other people. And I was like, there's got to be another option, man. And that's when I said, okay, create a new life, do things differently, start saying yes to opportunity. And the things that happened as soon as I did that, it was like a radar. My ears were pricked for anything, so I started doing, mud runs, triathlons. I took up serious hiking, just going away. I went and lived on a yacht for a year at a very random invitation. I said yes because, my friends reminded me, don't forget, Michelle, you said you're going to say yes to everything. Oh, shit, I did too. So verbalizing these things to people is very powerful because they're going to remind you. And then that creates integrity. You've got to do what you say you're going to do. That's integrity. So I've learned the power of verbalizing these things and writing it down and, having the trust. I've learned over time that when I commit fully, that's when whatever I need will come to me. So, thank you. Good question.
Reminds me of the movie Yes Man, which was a classic, great comedy with Jim Carrey. What were there times when it got really tough? Like how many times did you think you were just crazy for doing this?
Never. I never once.
Never thought.
Never thought, oh my God, what the hell am I doing here? I never asked that question once, and I never felt alone. And I never used the word lonely or alone in my whole both trips. And I never thought of, pressing the EPIRB. I could have quit anytime. I had an EPIRB. I could have let press the button and be saved at any moment, but I never considered it and even on my toughest days, I reminded myself why I was there. I reminded myself what I was doing there. And I put myself there. No one forced me to do this. I volunteered myself for this. And I reminded myself of the end picture. What was that going to feel like? Being able to play that movie, which I did. I played it in my head like a perfect picture. That was also very, very powerful and very important on those tougher days. I'd remind myself of all of those things. I'm like, oh, no. You're not quitting. Like, that's not even an option, So it helped me enjoy the moment more. Like, live in the moment, live in the now. This is all that matters right here, right now. And these are the lessons that I try to, share with the kids at schools.
So
I got to hop off soon, but I appreciate you sharing.
Thanks, Charles. So Michelle, you talked about you never felt alone. Can you talk more about that? Like why? Like what invisible force was there with you?
I reckon it's the law of oneness. When you look at the universal laws, the 12 universal laws, they resonate so loudly with me. And it's that idea of we are all connected, no matter what. We are energy. And that's what I felt. I felt an energy of everybody's thoughts, their wishes, their prayers. They were, hoping to see me get this thing done. I know they were feeling my pain on my tough days when they could see me going backwards. My map was showing, that Mother Nature wasn't in my favor. And just having everybody's well wishes, thoughts, and prayers. That is what I think I felt. And I think that, there's a ripple effect of it. And being on the water, being on the ocean, being Wi-Fi free, so no interruption, it just was magnified and it was amplified across the ocean. I felt it.
Awesome. Any other guys? You got any questions? Where you go, Eric?
I'm just curious, like after you got done, after you put all this planning, all the exercising and everything together, and you have these naysayers and, you know, all this stuff going, and that self-doubt. And when you actually like completed that and finally had that moment of self-reflection of, I just did this. What was the growth, like the feeling, that when the neurons reconnect, the new patterns start changing? Like when did you start shifting into like, I got this, like the period, and now moving forward, you've created this new person that can tackle on a lot of things in your life.
Yeah, it's like in the everyday world, what that does is it makes you realize you can do anything. You can achieve anything that you set your mind to. So it's easy for me, you know, I listen to people general bitching, moaning, and groaning about shit stuff, you know, the fucking traffic, or you know, the kids, or, oh, I went to a breakfast and the scrambled eggs and this and the line and the queue and this, and, you know, I listen to that and I just think, really? So there is less to rattle me now. You know what I mean? It takes a lot to rattle me. And I just remind myself of what I've achieved. And I just say to myself, I know I can do anything. I know my tolerance levels are higher than most. And I also say thanks to the struggles that I had in getting there, because it was thanks to those and my perseverance that, you know, this is how you raise the bar. This is how you raise the ceiling. This is how resilience is built. So I actually thank every single hardship now that happens, or challenge or obstacle that I have to navigate in just any day. You know, I think to myself, oh, this is my opportunity to step up. Thank you, universe. Because every time you do it and you come out the other side, these are bankable moments to me. These are the moments that I draw on the next tough thing, the next COVID or the next whatever. You know, I think, oh, hang on a minute, you got this. Fuck, you rode an ocean, Michelle. So that's what it's done for me. And I don't do it in an arrogant way, but it's just a confident, quiet knowing. And this is why I also encourage people, just do something uncomfortable every single week. We need to keep challenging these parts of the brain, and new things are lighting up, new pathways are lighting up. And if you just keep doing the same every day, nothing is changing up here. We need to have the hardships. And I now ask the question, why is this happening for me? And that changed everything. Not why is this happening to me? Why is this happening for me? And I know that the universe has my back. Like I've tried and tested that as well. So I know that when that's a hiccup in a plan, I know that it's for a reason, that the universe she's got my back. There's a reason why I shouldn't go take the low road and I should take the high road, you know? So it's just taught me how to just accept change and welcome change, you know?
No, I definitely love that. Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you so much. It's a very inspiring story. Thank you.
Thank you.
It seems to me that through our lives, we've got a certain amount of things we've got to do, achieve, overcome, deal with. And it's like you condense that down. I mean, you had a lot of preparation time, but then once you started, you know, you had those 240 days on the Pacific, 68 days on the Atlantic. It's almost now like you've hit a lot of hard things, and most things now will seem easy.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And when I'm having a moment of, you know, like I slip, I fall from grace, whatever you want to call it, I do remind myself of, hang on a minute, Michelle, just put this moment into perspective. And I remind myself of, yes, what I've done. And it creates a very big mental shift into, this is all right. It's not so bad.
Yeah. And I think we've all done things, obviously not to the level you've done it, but we've all got things we could call on to
absolutely
have that
and
happen.
you know, this is what I say. These are the, you know, put them in your little mindset, lock them in. There's a Silva technique where you lock it in, the 3-finger technique. And when I need to say, shift my mood or raise my vibration, if I have to raise my vibration, I just recall one of these bankable moments. I put my 3 fingers together and boom, I've just completely shifted my vibration. So, think of the conscious awareness chart. Go and have a look at it. And rage, fear, guilt, shame, anger, they are the lowest vibrations you can live in, okay? Then you get to acceptance. Things start to change there. Once you go acceptance, you go love, you go joy, and, the highest on the conscious chart is enlightenment. But to live your life as much as you possibly can in joy, love, acceptance, gratitude and appreciation, they are the highest vibrations. And so just think of these moments when you were in that state. Recall it, spend some time, close your eyes, go in the alpha state. You can change it instantly. And, again, it's a little bit of a discipline initially. You got to practice these things. I've practiced them because I've relied on them. I had to rely on something when I got out there. This is the stuff I relied on. Gratitude always was my go-to. If I was feeling a woe is me moment, poor me, I had a ribbon on my boat with all the names of everyone who helped me get to the start line. I would just choose a name. I'd think of, oh my God, that's right. She came and sat next to me every Sunday while I rode, and she humored me and she looked after me, and my mood would change like that.
Wow, that's having those visual cues too. Yeah.
And feel the feeling. You got to feel the feeling. That's why I just take a moment, man. Just excuse me, I've been an asshole, right? So if I've been an asshole to someone or whatever, I've fallen from grace, just give me a moment. Go and fucking change yourself. Come back. Say, sorry about that. I'm back, because we all fall from grace. We are human. Yeah. But how long are you going to spend in that time? That's the difference.
Yeah. See, it's a great method to pull us out of them quicker.
Yeah. Hi, Michelle. I came in a bit late this morning.
Welcome. I'm so glad to see you. We've got to meet one day.
Yeah. And look, I'm going to ask you a question. Forgive me if it's something you've already spoken about before I came into the meeting. But in both the Atlantic and the Pacific crossing, what was the toughest thing you had to overcome, like in terms of an encounter or an experience, and how did you overcome it?
Yeah, it was my imagination, waiting for, like I said, the calm before the storm, literally. When I knew there was going to be a cyclone and, we get good data 10 days out, my weather outer knew something forming, but he didn't know the path or whatever, or the strength, that would get better and better as it got closer and closer. But it was my imagination. And it was, this is what I've learned, we always imagine it, and it's worse in our imagination than it ever is in reality. And I've learned that you just got to give it a go. It was blowing 25 knots. I've never rode in 25 knots. The sea state was 4 meters. I've never been in 4 meters. And I said to myself, just go, okay, make a deal. Just go and sit on the rowing seat, get dressed, get ready, go out there, just have a go. If it's not nice, you come back inside, lock yourself up. I got out there. I had the time of my goddamn life. My boat was surfing down the waves. I'm like, I'm watching the chart plot of 10 knots was my PB. I had the best day of my life. And I was like, holy shit, that was just bad in my imagination. So that's my new thing now. You just got to give it a go. I won't know till I try it. I know that. I will not know until I try it. I just took a new job on. I says to the man, he says, how many hours do you want? I said, I don't know. Let me just try, because if I love it, I want a lot of hours. If I don't love it, I'll give you 2 days. You know what I mean? So these are the things now. Just try it. Keep an open mind. You just don't know what's going to be on the other side.
Awesome. And I know Michelle's got a deadline. She's got to leave in a few minutes. So any final questions?
Just one final one. I just want to touch on some things as far as like what I loved about you. I mean, of course, everything was awesome. You did like what everyone thought was impossible to you. But I love what you pointed out. You're the captain of your own ship, literally yourself and the boat you're in. And then one thing you kept saying was that team. you didn't do it by yourself. You have team, you have mentors, you have all this stuff. So that just reminds me that sometimes when we try to run solo or try to do some things, that we can't forget that, hey, we can't always do it by ourselves. So thank you for that.
Yeah. And that was so humbling for me to have to ask for help, and to have to accept that I can't do this on my own. That was huge, because I was at a stage in my life where I reckon I was walking around with a neon sign, basically saying, I can do life on my own. I don't need you. I had this real attitude. And I had to take the sign down, and I had to go and door knock, and I had to actually be vulnerable. I had to ask. And what I learned out of that is, oh my God, when you are vulnerable and you let go of ego and you just be real, authentic, you lay it out on the table, man, that's when you see the best of humanity. I've experienced the best of humanity. The amount of people that have bent over backwards to get me, to certain stages. Everything that I've done is, life is in stages, it's in phases. And I think that was, being vulnerable was one of my hardest lessons to learn, but my most valuable in just even now, my relationships with personally, professionally, it's completely changed just by getting rid of that fucking ego. I know it's there to protect you, but knowing the difference between, do I need it now, or is this a time? I'm safe, and these are things, little mantras that I had. I am safe, I am loved, I am protected. I would tell myself as I'm rowing each oar stroke, I am safe, I am loved, I am protected, I am guided. And I'd be programming my mind with good shit. So try that.
100%. Yep.
Yep.
Well, thank you for
Awesome.
that. Appreciate it.
Michelle, true or false? This whole thing was a ruse just to get back at your ex-partner.
Oh no, false. You know what? I'd love to say this. I always tell people Shane was, and to this day is still, the most kindest and thoughtful man that I've ever known. And I have put him on a pedestal, and our separation was just so amicable. We fought over things like, you have the TV, no, you take it. Everything was split to the last dollar, 50-50. And so, none. It was more of a that to my mentor and my coach coming across the Atlantic. So the guy who actually started training me for the Atlantic, he was everything. He was my coach, my mentor, became my boat builder. He became my boyfriend. And when that fell to shit, because I realized that we were out of alignment and his actual intention, he thought he was coming with me. I was I was always doing this solo. I was never taking anybody. But when he realized he wasn't coming, that's when he just exited. And again, that's when I had to say to the universe, oh my God, you're doing this for me, not to me. What is the message? It took me 2 days to realize, you need to step up, Michelle. You need to become the captain of this ship. I was letting him make every decision. So I wasn't knowing my boat as well as I should have, because I just let him do everything. Yeah. Okay. You think I should have? Okay. Why not? I wasn't questioning anything. So again, it was, yes, you got to be the captain of your own ship. And, thank you, universe, for dissolving that the way that it went. It had to happen for me to step up so that I could then be out there completely self-reliant. And again, why is this happening for me?
Yeah, I've written that down actually, Michelle. Why is this happening for me, not to me? Great.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
It really does change everything.
Redefine.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
And I
All right.
believe that statement that you wrote down, Philip, is, I think it gives you time to pause.
Totally.
Actually think about it. Wait a minute. I'm just asking myself a question. Now I gotta shift through it, instead of just automatically autopilot on default,
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool.
I'm going to put that up on social media today, but I'm going to put Michelle Lee underneath.
Awesome. Oh, I wish I knew, I've obviously heard that from somewhere. who actually said it, I don't know, but it resonated with me. And I'm like, holy shit, I'm going to apply that to every obstacle in my life now. I'm just going to ask that, so there I am sitting with head in hands, slid down the wall when he left me. Oh my God, I can't do this without him. And then when hang on a minute, why is this happening for me? Oh shit, you got to be the captain. You got to fucking step up, man. Bingo.
Yeah.
Now I was back in action. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah, beautiful. All right, guys, we've got to let Michelle go. She's got an appointment in a couple of minutes. We don't want her to be late. Thank you, Michelle. It's been wonderful, inspiring information as usual. And yeah.
Such a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
We've got to do it
Thank
again,
you,
Michelle. We've got to do it again.
Yeah, cool. Love to. Yep, absolutely.
Well, we're at the end of another thought-provoking episode. Remember to subscribe so you'll be alerted to new episodes. I want to say thank you to the men who are joining me on this journey of intuitive development. I truly hope our time together has expanded your reality and reinforced trust in your ever-reliable gut feeling. Embrace your intuition. It will not lead you astray. Until next time, stay tuned, stay curious, and trust your gut.